T&E Magazine presents Exum Music with your host, Lawon Exum. Produced by the Music Messenger Productions. Our show features artists, musicians, composers, producers, audio engineers, educators, and everything music. We cover in-depth interviews with a fresh perspective from up-and-coming to established minorities in the industry. Please visit tnemagazine.com to subscribe. Enter promo code EXUMMUSIC to receive 30% off your subscription. Enjoy the show.
You are listening to Exum Music with your host, Lawon Exum, where everything is music. On this episode of Exum Music, we had the pleasure of interviewing Ollie Gabriel. He was a phenomenal person to interview. He talked about his musical journey and what inspired him to go beyond music in his journey of being in this industry. We are here with my man, Ollie Gabriel. Who is Ollie Gabriel? Tell my people. Who is Ollie Gabriel?
Ollie Gabriel. Well, I mean, that's that. Where do I start? I mean, this guy is just, he's a pretty amazing guy. I'm happy I've gotten to know him over the years. No, I'm Ollie Gabriel. Thanks, T&E, for having me. I am a recording artist, producer, songwriter, entrepreneur, motivational personality, and just like to think of myself as a all-around good human being.
Good. All right.
That's the short answer.
That's a short answer. Well, I love your music.
Thank you so much.
That's what I want you to tell people about your music.
Okay.
What was your inspiration to being in the music industry?
Inspiration for being in the music industry was really, before I wanted to be in the music industry, I just knew I wanted to make music. Before I even knew that it was like an industry per se, right? The business side. But I just was one of those kids, like so many kids growing up watching Michael Jackson and, 6, 7 years old, standing in front of the TV and, moonwalking in my church socks, that kind of thing. So I mean, that, the moment for me was really seeing how music moved people. And I knew I wanted to do that. Like I wanted to be able to create a feeling, by performing or entertaining and give that happiness to people.
I can feel it. I can feel your happiness. I mean, they might not can feel it, but
Can you feel it? Can you feel it?
But I can feel it.
Yeah.
Do you come from a musical background? Like, do you?
Well, I mean, kinda. But amateur musician. My family. I'm from Louisiana, so I come from a very musical, entertainment-like family. So it was always a party. We always was singing and dancing, and it was kind of like that. So music was always around, but there were no professional musicians per se, in my family. But a lot of my family members, they all had dreams of being famous and things like that. But they kind of got into the workforce and things. But they kept that hunger and love for music. So I was always around music at a young age.
Okay. What is some of the genres that inspired you when you were coming up?
Oh, that's a good question. The cool thing I think that really makes my music unique is I'm inspired by so many genres of music. One of the main ones is rock and roll. It was always been a huge thing. So I grew up in Lafayette, Louisiana, so the racial mix-up was pretty much just whites and blacks.
Right.
So I went to an all-white school, but then like family-wise and in church and things, it's like all black. So I got a lot of the blues and stuff and soul music, obviously from the black side. But then at school, all my friends and stuff, a lot of them were into heavy metal and rock and roll and classic rock and all those things. So and country music as well was a huge influence. I'm a huge Garth Brooks fan.
Get out.
What's up, Garth? Yeah, Garth Brooks. Metallica. I was a huge Metallica fan. I'm looking for that concert. So I grew up on all that classic rock, Alice in Chains and Lynyrd Skynyrd, and I go deep, like classic rock stuff. So, and all that influenced me, and now my show is kind of a mix of soul, pop, but it has that, you can see that rock edge to it too as well that I bring to it. So.
Okay. Well, I have to say, speaking of your show, if you haven't seen this guy in action, you have to see him perform Running Man.
Oh yeah. Oh, you seen it?
Oh,
it made you, did it make you tired?
I mean,
Well, you like, I need a glass of water.
You have to tell them about Running Man, please. How did you come up with Running Man? And you guys have to listen to it, but please explain to them.
Oh, well,
Running Man.
So Running Man, actually, believe it or not, that song was written and produced pretty much in about like 10 minutes, which is why the chords don't change. Okay. It's like 3 chords the whole way. We're like, just keep it going, just keep that, run those 3 chords. Right. And but it's because it's just a feeling, you know, and that's what I really wanted to convey. And Running Man was written at a time that I didn't have a manager, I didn't have a record label, I didn't know really what my next move was. I had no way of knowing how the record was going to get out. You know, now it's got almost 17 million streams.
I see that.
And but this was at a time before that, so it was really written. I think I wrote it so fast because it was like an encouragement to me. I knew that I hadn't gone that far in my career, despite not knowing what was next. I knew that there was a reason that if I just kept going, if I kept running, feet don't fail me now, that I'm gonna get, you know, something's gonna come that I couldn't see at that point. And yeah, like a year or so later, a year and a half later, I ended up getting an opportunity to put the record out in Europe first. Okay. And it was a big hit, top 10 hit, and the rest is history. Now I'm sitting here talking on the T&E network.
That's right. That's right.
Look at God.
look at him. Look at him. But okay, that leads me to my question. What keeps you going? Since I mean, that was probably a pivotal time in your life. What keeps you going in
faith, man? The upstairs, you know, whether I'm a very spiritual person, you know, so that faith keeps me going, and just belief. I mean, I have a very solid vision of who I am and what the life that I want and the life that you know, I feel I deserve. So belief in that vision and the faith that you can achieve it, and also having the discipline to do the steps to get there. That's really what keeps me going. It's really just a strong faith that I can do this.
Say that.
Yeah. You know,
say that. I mean, no, for real. I mean, it takes a lot.
Yeah. And that works. I feel like that works for no matter what you're doing, like music, whatever. It's really like those, you gotta like know what you want, faith. And I wasn't always like this. Okay. You know what I mean? But now that's the thing that really keeps me going. It's like just having that clear vision and then being able to draw the steps in between once you know exactly, okay, where am I trying to get to?
And now a word from Ollie Gabriel on his upcoming performance.
What's up, everybody? This is Ollie Gabriel. I'm chilling here with T&E. I want to invite everybody out to my show in Hollywood at the Sayers Club. It's April 20th. That's a Friday. You guys come out. It's going to be super live. Return of the Soul Man. Come out and check my band out, the Soul Town Peoples. Ollie Gabriel.
What really brought you out here? Like,
my story.
Your vision. What is your story? Like, what was your footsteps to get out here?
Yeah, well, I mean, it started off kind of crazy because I'll bring you back to Louisiana. So I'm born and raised in Louisiana. When I was 17, I joined the Army 3 weeks before 9/11. Yeah, so I just wanted to go, you know, I wanted to start a record label when I got out of high school, because my idol at that point was like, I wanted to be the next Master P. You know, so I've always had this dream. My goal has always been to be, I've always had the vision of being a music mogul, being a guy like Dr. Dre, for instance, that produced for everyone, because I'm a producer and a songwriter. So he had the hits for everybody else, but he also had his own hits, but he also like ran his company. I never wanted to be looked at like an artist. I've always had this thing, I want to be the boss, like I want to call the shots and all that. So Master P was being from Louisiana, was one of my idols, because I was like, No Limit, they do their own thing, you know what I mean? Cash Money too as well. And I was like, I want to start a record label. So how do I get this money? So I went to the Army, because, you know, the recruiters at the high school was like, oh yeah, you come to the Army, oh yeah, you get paid, you don't have, so I'm thinking, I'm doing the math, I'm like, well, I ain't gotta pay rent, okay, because they feed me 3 meals a day, and I'm making money, I can do this, right? You know what I mean? So, but what they didn't tell me, I didn't factor in taxes. I had no idea how taxes worked yet. So it was like, okay, yeah, you made $3,000 this month, but $1,500 got to come back to us. And I'm like, okay. So anyways, long story short, I went to the Army. 3 weeks later, 9/11 happened. This was before I graduated, so I signed up, and then 9/11 happened. And then I was super panicked because we were at war at that point. And a week after I graduated, I went to actual basic training. And when I got out of the Army, I didn't really have a lot of money. I probably had like $4,000, and I bought a car with 2 and stuff. And by the time it was all done, it was like, and I got an apartment, there was no money for a record label. And so long story short, I got activated to go to Iraq when in 2003, and they told us like 6 months before. And I was like, man, I'm like going to Iraq. It's like my whole life is about to change, right?
Correct.
And so that was a really crazy experience, being 18 and thinking you're about to go to war, right? So I remember that morning I left the house. It was at 6 in the morning. The city had threw us a parade before, because this is all local, hometown kind of thing, you know? And the city threw us a parade, and when we left that morning, I remember, and I was sitting on the bus, and the sergeant walks in, and he's like, hey, the following names fall out in formation. So my unit had 250 people. I was one of like 40 people that got put on what's called rear detachment. Okay. We got off the bus left, went to Iraq, we stayed. So that was the first time I was like, God intervened, I feel like, and was like, no, like this is a different direction, like you have to go. And that brings me back to how I got to California, because after that, all my friends went to Iraq, because we all joined together in high school. Correct. And when they left, only friends I had left was friends in the streets. So I had like friends that I went to high school with, and then I had friends that were like sold drugs and was in the streets. So then my best friend that I would hang with, who was in the streets, he went to jail a few months after that for like 5 years in Texas. He got caught with like some pounds of weed and stuff. Right. And after that, it was like, I gotta get out of here, because that was like my crew then. Now that I had to start, that I was hanging with, and I was getting into some trouble and stuff, and I had a little run-in with the law, and I met this girl online in a chat room. This is back in the Yahoo chat room days. So I used to go in these chat rooms. And just be singing. Like I go to like the R&B chat room, and I'd be like, woo, 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 what I mean? I would go in these chat rooms and like fired up, and like get the girls just like fired up in these chat rooms, right? And then all the girls, oh my God, you sound so good. And you say that, right? And so it was like, and this was back on like dial-up internet, you know what I mean? Right. So I met this one girl in a chat room, that's how we met, and then we started, talking online, but this is before FaceTime. This is like all that. So really, you got to take people on a picture. I don't even think the word catfishing was invented yet. No. Because we didn't even know what that was. Right. So I met this girl online, and we started talking on the phone. She was shooing or whatever, and she lived in Sacramento. And that was actually my first long-term relationship. Long story short, we talked for a few months online, and then one day she was like, hey, why don't you come out here and like visit me? And I was like, I didn't have no money really, so she was like, I'll send you a train ticket. I'm like, okay, you gonna send me a train ticket, fine. So I had other girlfriends at the time in Louisiana, right? You know what I mean? So I'm telling them, I was 19, years old, so I was having a good time. But I'm telling my other girlfriends, look, I gotta go to California. I got some business to do, right? So I remember my girlfriend in Louisiana at the time, she drops me off to the train station, and I didn't realize though that it was gonna take me 2.5 days to get to Sacramento. Worst train, I'd never been on a train really, very few times since then, because that really ruined it for me. Okay. People were getting on the bus with like
all type of baggage.
Oh man, it was funky. It was horrible. I felt like it was on like Amistad Part 2. It was crazy. But anyway, so I got to Sacramento. She was who she said she was. I was like, whoo, because that was my whole thing. Like, man, I hope I show up here and she's there. She's like,
it's her.
It's her, yeah, you know what I mean? And but it was. And I stayed with her for like 2 months, and then it was too much out of my comfort zone. So I got to the point where I wanted to come home.
Okay.
Because it was, it's, when you step out of your comfort zone,
yeah.
You're like, okay, this is cool, but this ain't. I'm not familiar with this. Let me go back home.
Right.
So I went back home, but then when I went back home, I got in an accident. That's when my boy went to jail, and like all these things were happening, and it was like signs saying like you need to get up out of here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then that was in July, and I stayed home till like December, and then December 2004, I left and never looked back, and I stayed in Sacramento for 2 years. Okay. And yeah, that was my move to California.
Wow.
That was the long way around, but
no,
yeah,
and
that's just half of it, because when I got to California, I had to transfer my unit because I was still in the Army.
Okay.
You can't just up and leave. You still got, obligations.
Correct.
So I had to find a unit in Sacramento that needed my job. So I found that unit. The unit I ended up getting into was an Air Med unit. One of the most deployed units in the entire Army. So they were the guys in the Black Hawks that would come down and pick up the wounded all through Iraq. So your chances of going to Iraq in this unit were like 90%. So after about a year being in this unit, I actually got put on the battle roster to go to Iraq. Okay. But here's the thing, the way my job was, I worked 4 days on and 4 days off. So when I wasn't on base, I was out doing what I wanted to do, and I found a studio in Sacramento. So I really got really fast into that swing of recording music, and I would be sending my music all over. And when I would go back to work, I had a sergeant who would always ask, "Hey Gabriel, what did you do on your break?" And I would play her my music, and she was just like floored. She was like, "Oh my God, I can't! It sounds like the radio." Like there people that never believed that it was like my music.
Exactly.
Because I've always had a good knack for creating stuff that sounded like competitive, right? Okay. And long story short, she brings me in her office one day and she says, you're on the battle roster to go to Iraq. Right. But, I know you just got here, and if you don't want to go, then we'll take you off the battle roster. Correct. And she was like, I think you're going to be famous, and you need to follow your dreams and that type of thing. So when I got to Sacramento, I got activated again in that unit. Okay. And long story short, my sergeant was a fan of my music because I would play her music when I would come back. She'd say, "Well, Gabriel, what you doing on your break?" And I played these songs. He couldn't believe it was me. She was like, "This is better than the radio." So we started building a relationship in that way where she really believed in my talent. And she calls me in her office and she's like, "Hey, you ended up on the battle roster to go to Iraq. We're leaving in, I think like 3 or 4 months at that time." And I was like, dang, not again. Because I already missed it in Louisiana. Exactly. And then here I am in Sacramento now, and I'm like, but these ain't people I grew up with. These ain't like my friends, you know what I mean? So it was just a whole nother kind of anxiety that came with that. And she was like, "I think you're going to be really famous. You need to pursue your dreams, and like you're really good. You should like go to LA, and if you want to be on the battle roster, if you don't want to go to Iraq, which I'm sure you don't, then I'll take you off the battle roster." Really? Yeah, so she really gave me a choice, and that really was the beginning of a new direction in my life, because me and my girlfriend at the time, we had been together for, I was coming up on 2 years, so we were kind of like on the rocks anyway. I was kind of itching because I had gotten my foot enough in Sacramento. I wasn't new to California anymore. I'd built some friends and stuff, and I started going out, and so I'm like, oh, okay, like there's options out here, and like, you know what I mean? I was a young single guy. But anyways, so we were kind of on the rocks a little bit, and I had really been thinking about going to LA, and because everyone was saying, "Man, you need to go to LA." Because what I would do is take my music, and this was back in the MySpace days now. So this is like, going way back. Yeah, so this is like 2005. And what I would do is when I record music, I would meet people like these chat rooms and stuff or whatever. And I would send my demos all over. I had people that really helped me early on that I still to this day have never met. Like, guys in Virginia and in New York, and here's what happened. So long story short, I don't go on the battle roster. She takes me off the battle roster. A guy that I knew online from like MySpace or something, I forgot where we met, and probably some chat room or something. Right. But he was in the music business on the East Coast. So I'm sending him music and stuff like that, right? Or at least he said he was. Right. And he calls me up one day and was like, hey, oh, they used to call they would call me oh. So he's like, oh, I got this guy in New York. He's based in LA. He's with Interscope, and they heard your music, and he want to meet you. So I was like, okay, I'm in Sacramento. So we're doing this like three-way triangle thing. I'm talking with him in Virginia. He's talking with his brother in New York, who's talking with the guy who's based in LA. So so long story short, we put all that together, and we get on a conference call, and the guy was a big music exec, who worked with Interscope, and they had hit records and stuff. So when he came back to LA, he was in New York doing business. So when he came back to LA, we met up. So I drove the 6.5 hours in my little Cherokee and went out there and meet him. And I liked the whole vibe. I mean, it was my first time really being around, wealth in that sense. Seeing like Bentleys and big mansions and things. I was like, oh, I got to get out here. And I ended up signing my first record deal that year by December of 2005, and I moved to LA, and that was the beginning of like really building myself as an artist and as building my career. That was really my first shot.
But your footsteps were ordered.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, looking back, hindsight's 20/20, right? So, looking back, you can see how all of those things prepared you to where you are now. At that time, I thought it was like we rich, like I mean, I'm thinking like it's about to be spinners and scrippers, you know what I mean?
It's not like that.
Yeah, So, but I didn't realize that particular moment at that time was really more for me a learning opportunity.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? More than a money play or a career play.
Of course, yeah.
Because, I didn't put out a record during that time. I was on that deal for 2 years, but I learned so much about not just the business, but really about myself more than anything. I learned more about who I wanted to be, what my vision was, the type of people I wanted around me. I learned it was a life lesson, so I would never take it back. It was very hard, one of the hardest periods of my life. That I think the Army kind of prepared me for, to be able to go through that, because that was a tough situation. I almost gave up all my dreams during that time. Because my mindset at that time was one of always thinking I had to be discovered. You know what I mean? So this was I don't know, I'm from Louisiana. I don't know no one in the music industry or anything like that. So I'm thinking I'm going to send my music out, and some guy with the golden pen's gonna sign me and write me a check, and I'm like, oh, mama, I could buy your house now or something like that, or and just think everything's gonna be good and I'll be happy. You know what I mean? Because I'm discovered. You know what I mean? But I didn't really understand how the business worked, and I didn't understand that about working towards a vision, or I didn't have a lot of those personal skills, personal development skills that I have now at that time. So it was very stressful, and I had to learn a lot.
Here's Ollie Gabriel to tell you about his upcoming album, Return of the Soul Man.
What's up, y'all? It's Ollie Gabriel. I wanted to let everyone know that my album, Return of the Soul Man, will be out real soon, so you guys make sure to be on the lookout for Return of the Soul Man by Ollie Gabriel. It's coming soon. Thanks.
I mean, can you tell some of the readers, like, what are some of the things and trials, tribulations that you went through to get to where you at today?
Yeah, well, I would say one of the biggest lessons that I learned in the first record deal stage of my life was that after that was over, I really learned money doesn't make you happy like I thought it did. Up until that point, I thought, hey, if you're rich, you got it, because I'd never seen it. I don't think up until that point I knew or had met anyone that made over $100,000 a year, much less, millions.
Right, correct.
And I lived when I was in that first record deal. So I moved in with my executive producers, the guys who owned the label, and one of the house that I lived in was like a $20 million mansion, and had swimming pools and like basketball courts, and there's Bentleys and all these cool cars in the driveway. So really one of those kind of, you know, houses that you see with the gates open up and
Correct.
the cars around.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of one of those things that for me it was like, wow, this is like every music video I've ever seen.
Exactly.
And I live here now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I thought that I was happy, like super happy for like a little while, you know, because you know, I'm going to the arcade room, I'm gonna go play, shoot some hoops or do it, whatever. But then it was like, it started to get to the point to where, because I wasn't making music, they didn't know what to do with me, and I didn't know what to do with me because up until that point, I was like, okay, I'm discovered now, signed a deal, boom, what's next? Y'all tell me what I got to do. You know what I mean? I didn't have like a vision for my own and know how to drive that vision. So I think the biggest lesson was that, one, no one's going to do it for you.
That's right.
Two, money doesn't make you happy. I saw myself around people who were really, you know, wealthy, but were miserable. It was just always drama. It was just like, I was like, oh man, it's like, I didn't want that for myself. I was like, man, I felt sorry. I started toward a point I started to feel sorry for him. Like, dang, you know what I mean? It's always something negative or drama or just all these things, you know?
And because that is toxic.
Yeah, and that's toxic. So it really started to play on my energy. So it got to the point to where I was like, man, do I even really want to be in the music industry? Like, I started to think about going to school and be a doctor or a lawyer or something like that, you know? But music is my passion, and I knew that was my calling, and I said, you know what, I'm not going to let other people put out my fire, you know what I mean, or stop me from doing what I came here to do. So I was in that deal for like 2 years, and I walked away from it. I actually said, it was like, hey, whatever it is, you guys keep whatever money that whatever, and I just want out. Like, I just want to do my own thing, right? And they got it. Fortunately, I was able to get out of it. A lot of times people can't get out of deals, you know. But I think at that point, there wasn't anything significant that had happened, and they didn't know what to do with me. And we had kind of the relationship had kind of really transformed more into a family thing because we lived together and all that. So the lines were kind of blurred, you know what I mean? So it's all love, and I still talk to some of them, you know, now and then. They're very, you know, proud of me, you know, because now I'm on a different level, you know what I mean? Now it's Ollie the exec, you know? Exactly. So, yeah, and then I went from that point, it was just a growth period. Like this was like in 2007 when I lost that, when I walked away from that deal and kind of had to go on my own. And the next, I would say 5 years were really all about finding myself. You know, I went through a phase of just partying and all that stuff because it was my first time really being alone in LA. Like, okay, I have no one except friends. Like, I didn't have that support system. Exactly. I had never had to, you know, pay rent or do anything like that because I was living with them. Right. You know, and before I was in the Army, so I really never had to really be on my own. Right. When I left that deal, I slept in my car for a week. I had nowhere to go. You know, that's literally the only possession I had to my name was my car and the clothes that I had. So I got my clothes in bags, put my clothes in the car. I had this old beat up Chrysler Sebring convertible. It was ugly, but the top went down. The top went down. Like, when the top was down, it was nice. You know what I mean? But it needed a paint job. It needed a good paint job. And yeah, and so I started to work, and then I built a career in sales.
Okay. So
that was a turning point for me because it was my first time really having like a job. And I started out first working at an insurance agency, and I did really well with that. And I was like, oh, I'm really good at like talking with people and doing that. And then I found another job where I started as a telemarketer for an SEO firm.
Oh, you really going back, telemarketer?
Yeah. So I started as a telemarketer for an SEO firm. And I'm like, what's SEO? This was in the beginning, like search engine optimization, and we help people get to the top of Google. No one knew what that was. This was like in 2008, and I ended up being I went from a telemarketer, and then about 6 months later, I was the top closer in the office because as telemarketers, we were just opening leads, and we would pass them on to these two guys in this office. It was a brand new office, so they had just only been open like 6 months after when I started working for them. And I was like, you know, I would pass these things, and I was like, I would ask him, hey, is it cool if I sit in here and just like hear you like close this deal, hopefully, because I was getting paid, you know, probably like $10 an hour maybe, and a small commission, maybe like $200 if the deal closes. And I started to get cool with one of the guys, and I was like, you know, like, man, damn, like, how much, like, you mind me asking, like, how much do you make? And he was like, oh yeah, like on a good month, like, you know, 12,000, 13,000. And I'm like, I want to do what you doing. Like, how do I do that?
Right.
And he was like, well, you know, just sitting here and like, you know, I hear you talking. He was like, you good. Just like, come just learn. And I literally would go in his office and pass him leads, and I would just write down everything that he would say. You know what I mean? Just like word by word, and as fast as I could.
Wow.
And then I would go home and I would practice it. And then basically I just started saying their scripts, but in my own voice.
With your own voice, right.
You know, and I got really good at it. I was closing deals. And so that job really changed my life, because it was the first time that I really started to make that kind of money on my own, you know. So I had a run selling SEO where, yeah, I was consistently, you know, making at over 10 grand a month.
Come on,
doing that. But I wasn't ready to manage that kind of money, because every time I would get checked, like literally, because the way the job was, it was residuals. So, you know, you get a client for maybe 10 or 15,000 for the year, and then they're paying $1,000 every month after. So you're getting, all that starts to build up, because I was making 30% commission, commission only. Right. And so sometimes you just show up to work and you got a residual check for $2 grand. You know what I mean? So I was like going to Vegas every weekend. We're buying bottle service. I mean, and it was cool for me, because I'm at the time 25 years old. And I kind of validated myself at that time by being able to just have money. Like, I literally had, I remember I was dating this girl, I didn't have a bank account. I just had all my money in a shoebox. Seriously, I had all my money in the shoebox. And one day, she came over, she was like, oh, like, what, you got your shoes right here? And I was like, open it up. And they opened up, and it must have been like $8,000 or something in the shoebox. And she was like, what, she was like, what the hell? Like, why is this in the bank? And for some reason, I thought I had bad credit, and I couldn't open up a bank account, because years before, I had been told that, oh, you can't open up a bank account, and I just never tried again. And so that's kind of a point to say that, you know, sometimes like if you've been told no or something, and you can't do something, and then you don't try again. And when I ended up going later in life and you know, checking my credit, and once I got like responsible, I realized, I was like, they were like, oh yeah, you got like a 780. And I'm like, dang, all these years, I've been thinking that I had bad credit or whatever. This is the story I had. And I'm sitting here, you know, with great credit, right? You know what I mean? So that was a...
Listen to this advice. No, seriously. Listen to what he's saying, because it happens every day. He kept on persevering for what he wanted to do. So how did you get back into the music industry? Like, how did
so working at this SEO company, one of the guys that worked across, one of the other closers, we were like the top closers in the office, he actually was getting music into film and TV, like as a side thing. So that was my first introduction into film, music licensing. Because to that point, I only thought about music as, getting a record deal, being signed as an artist. Like, okay, I gotta make a demo, someone has to sign. I'm still in that discovery mind frame. I'm trying to get discovered. You know what I mean? But here's a guy that wasn't an artist. I mean, he was like probably 40 something, you know what I mean? Long hair, like, you know, he's like, you know, behind the desk, he sells SEO as his main thing, but he'd say, oh, Ollie, because he knew I sang, oh, Ollie, check this, I got, you know, I just placed this in this Fox thing or whatever, and I made a cool $1,500 on this or whatever, and I was like, damn, man, Rich, how you doing that? What's the thing? And he kind of put me on game about how to get paid from getting your music in film and TV.
That is amazing.
So I started spinning my wheels, and I was like, oh, okay. So I started to look at things differently. So then I started to approach making music like, oh, this doesn't necessarily have to be for my project. Let me start trying to figure out and meet people that can get my music in film and TV. So I started to do that, and I started to meet people at licensing companies and licensing agencies and things. And I ended up doing a deal with Sony ATV Extreme Music, which is they place all the music in Viacom, so that's Oxygen Channel, MTV, BET, all that stuff like that. So And this is, I'm kind of fast forwarding a little bit. This was like in 2009 or 2010. So I'd already been in the SEO company now for a few years. And that's how it really got back into music. So basically, I was just recording all the time, but I started to build up a lot of momentum as doing production music. So, you know, doing the music, I've been in pretty much every reality show from like Jersey Shore to Punk'd to, you know, just pretty much any reality show you can name, because the company that I did the deal with, that's where those reality shows get all of their music.
That is amazing.
So, and I was in the thing with them, the hype music series, that basically when you would hear a song on like Bad Girls Club, it would say you're listening to Ollie Gabriel or whatever on the, you know, on the bottom of the screen. So I started to build some fans like that, and it was also, I started to make money. I was like, okay, there wasn't much up front at first, but then over the years and stuff, it's like, oh, okay, this is like,
because every time it's played,
every time it's playing, you get paid. And so I started to think about music and how to make money in the music industry differently. I diversified my role, you know?
I was just going to say, what I love about you is that every opportunity that you came across, it turned out to be in the music. You went into the music side and you did different levels of it. Business side, the artist side, production side. That's good.
Yeah, I tell that to artists. I think that it's like, I say, throwing shit on the wall. Not that I've ever done that. I don't know, can we curse on this one? Throwing sticky stuff on the wall. yeah, you know what I mean? So, but you got it. You don't know what's going to stick, and you don't know what avenue. And I really realize that a lot more now than I did before. You know, because before you kind of limit yourself. You think that, oh, it's going to happen like this. Exactly. It's going to be like this. And, you know, you kind of, it's good to be tunnel vision, but you still have to be able to see it from, you know, above the trees, right? And be like, oh, well, what if this? And then also, too, a lot of times our plan is so small. We think it's big, but it's nothing compared to the plan that, you know, that God has for you, of what's possible. You know, so that is a true testament, because the things that are happening now for me is just amazing. I'm like, wow, I didn't even see how that could happen, but I just trust it now and just go with it, you know.
So can you tell some of my readers what are some of your projects that you're on right now?
So right now I have a residency at I've been performing a lot in LA. So I have a residency at the Sayers Club in Hollywood. So if you're in Hollywood, every third Friday of the month, starting March 23rd. Okay. Sayers Club is a super cool club.
We've been there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So you guys got to come to the show March 23rd. Yeah. And my band's awesome. I got a big band, like 13 pieces. Last show I had 15 pieces because I brought in a harmonica player and stuff. But I bring live musicians. We got 4 horns. We got 3 background singers. I got the background singers dancing. They're sexy. They're, you know, so, and then I'm doing my thing. So it's like a band that you don't see a lot of bands like mine. You know what I mean? And we're putting on a show.
Well,
yeah.
It sounds like you're putting on a show.
Yeah.
But not only are you putting on a show, so you play instruments as well?
Yeah. So my first instrument was actually trombone. I play piano and keyboard is probably like my main thing, but I can write a song on guitar. You know, I'm a very musical person. I've been in bands since I was in the 4th grade. So, you know, I know how to read music, and yeah, I was a marching band nerd. I did the jazz bands, the district bands, the concert. Yeah, my marching band, and we actually had the best band in the state for 2 years while I was there. And a lot of that I like to think was because of me. Because one year, Louisiana? Because one year we did a Santana show, and you know, I was so blessed. I love teachers. Like I always said, if I would be in music, I would be a teacher. And that's why now I do motivational speaking, and I speak to high schools. I just spoke to 200 high school kids last week, and I just love teachers because it's such a passion job. They don't get paid. They don't get paid anything, man. But the impact that they make, I know, like I have band teachers that made a great impact. My English teacher, I mean, like people at that stage that believed in me. Like I wanted to play. I had a band teacher that was like, "Oh, you're good at piano. let's build you, even though I play trombone, let's do a Santana show, and we'll build you this rack with pianos, and we'll get 7th graders to push it on the field. So I'm marching, and so I got to play keyboard in a marching band, and in a Santana show, and like, I mean, just, and it was, and other things too. They let me move around on instruments. Oh, you're a good drummer. Here, play quads. Like, play, you know what I mean? So I wasn't locked in to like, oh no, you trombone, you have to play this. So I really got the chance in band to play everything. I played from tuba to trombone to piano to percussion.
I'm coming.
You know?
We're coming to see you.
Yeah.
Shout out to the teachers.
Yeah, shout out to the teachers.
We're going to shout out to the teachers.
Yeah. They're the celebrities.
They really are.
Yeah.
They are the celebrities.
Yeah.
So where can we find some of your social media platforms?
OllieGabriel.com is my website. At Ollie Gabriel, OLLIE, Gabriel, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And be looking for an album. I'm in the studio right now recording my project. So I'll be releasing new music here within the next month or so. And yeah, I'm so much working on a book right now. I'm really right now, the thing that I'm really passionate about is really leadership things. Like getting involved with the students. I just got booked to do 8 more high schools.
Get it.
And
get it.
You know, so I'm really building my brand outside of music too as well. As just because what I want to do is when I'm not touring and making music, I just want to really be, you know, making an impact in some kind of way. You know, so I just really want that to be known for that as well. You know.
I have to admit. You give me competition.
Oh,
I mean, they'll let you know.
That's hard work, though. That's hard. Because you got the socks, you coordinating.
I'm telling you, but you got to, come on, man.
Thank you, man.
I mean, your taste, I mean, just from the glasses to the pants, I see you adding the socks. Don't even try it. Don't even try it. Don't even try it. But the haircut and everything. How did you get your style?
Oh, man. Well, you know, I've always really, I think I get it from my mom, because my mom is super stylish. Like, I went to see her over Christmas. I'm like, Mom, you are a fly mom, you know what I mean? And I think I just have like my own kind of thing. I've just always been able to put stuff, I'm visual. So I'm just always able to put things together, outfits or whatever. So people ask me all the time, like, you a stylist or whatever? I'm like, no. I style my wife, and she's like, yo, can you? Like, I actually just put a mood board together for her, because I was like, okay, we gonna rebrand your whole thing, you know. So I do my own. Like when I was signing my label, like the label sent me, you know, they send you these mood boards for stylists on. I was like, no, I'll do my own, and I did my own, and they were like, oh, that's dope. So I don't know. I think it's just a talent.
It is.
That I have, you know?
Some people are born with it, and some people are not.
Yeah.
He's born with it. Well, you made an impact today. You really have.
Well, thank you.
Impact on T&E Magazine with me, because I'm telling you, you all got to check them out. You have to.
Check me out.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. And thanks to the Nicole experience. That's what this T&E stands for.
Thank you for listening to Exum Music with your host, Lawon Exum. Subscribers, please don't forget to use my promo code Exum Music, where you'll get 30% off your subscription. Thank you. Exum out.